Podcast artwork just got a whole lot easier because ChatGPT can now do good text on images. That means you can create your artwork in minutes rather than hours. Let's jump into it, see how it works. You can download all of the AI prompts that I've used in this video, so you can replicate everything that I've done here. Just go over to thepodcasthost.com/artwork prompt. First thing with just about any prompt is always that role. What role do we want it to play? So I'm going to type in the role here. So my role here is you're a podcast artwork designer. Tell it what it does. So you create the front cover for podcasts. The goal is making it eye-catching and engaging to potential listeners and to help grow the listeners of that podcast. We're making it nice and clear what the goal is. We're not just making artwork to be beautiful. Here, we're making it to grow the show. Next, I want my specs. So this is the format that the artwork has to conform to. So artwork for podcasting has to be square. And for Apple Podcasts specifically, but generally across the board, it needs to be 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels. But that's all we really need to give it for the artwork. Next, we're going to give it some rules. And this is a little bit more subjective. So these are my rules, but they're generally the rules that we've found to work best for artwork over the years. The title is the most important thing, highest priority. The title is what should draw people in, really. And also, I say, please do include a visual element if you think it works for a podcast concept. But I want it to keep it simple. So I do like graphics, I do like illustrations in podcast artwork. Potentially photos too. We'll come to how you use photos for an artwork in a later part of this video. And finally, if we include a tagline, you don't have to, but often it's a nice idea. Please include it in the artwork, but lower priority. You want the tagline to be a lot smaller, but still big enough to see. And I give it a bit of instruction here about the fact that artwork is seen very small in some directories. And the last part here is, of course, to tell it a bit about the podcast. It needs to know something about the podcast. So here's the format I suggest. Tell it the podcast title, the tagline, and the description. So this is for a show I host with Matthew called Podcraft. It's about how to run a podcast. So that description should give it plenty to work with. Now, in most cases, you want to give it a bit of guidance, some ideas, what you think would work, what style you actually like. But I'm going to try it first, just give it a bit of free rein. Create this in whatever style you think suits the podcast concept. I'll come to teaching you a little bit about how to guide it a bit more in terms of style, content, and everything in the next section. But let's see what this does. And here we go, a first attempt. I think this is quite decent. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's quite eye-catching. The main thing I would think about here, I'll give it some coaching, is I don't like just microphones and stuff that's podcasting. The podcast is not about the mic. It's about the people. So let me just type that in just now. So there I've given it a change request right in the stream here. We'll see what it comes up with there. Quick version 2 now. But now it's taken the mic out altogether, so I can't even tell he's a podcaster. So I'm going to give it one more shot here, and then I'll move on and show you how to coach it so that we get something a bit more exactly what we want, because these are maybe a bit generic, really, aren't they? And here's what we've got. So you can see, not ideal. So this actually showcases something really important here, which is the way to go back to previous versions, the way to iterate on particular versions of an image. Now we've got 3 images here. 1, 2, 3. If I want to go back, sometimes the best thing to do is actually to go back to the first and start again, because obviously that's taken that one and then it's iterated on that by putting another mic on top and we're 2 layered. So if I go back to this one though, I can actually click on that image and you can see we go into an image editing type approach. There's a few tools in here that are worth sharing. You can also go between all the different variations. You can start to actually highlight things. So I can take that edit tool up there and I can highlight things and say, I only want to change this. I only want to change that word. So that's a really useful tool in there. So you can start to describe and highlight things you want to change. And you can really tell it exactly what to do. So instead, I'm going to give it new instructions. There we go. New instructions in and go. And that will now take that from that first version and really take any instructions into account, including anything I've highlighted on the image too. Before we see the results, you can see the little icon here showing that that was taken from a previous version, which is a nice little indicator. But here we go. There we have it. Quite cheesy. But we have what I asked for, a host with a mic and nicely integrated into the text. So, I mean, no reason we couldn't use that really. But this takes us to style. So I would generally want to then have a bit more control over the style. Not necessarily a big fan of this quite cheesy, cartoony style. So I'd want to actually have more control over that. So let's look into that next. Quick aside to talk to you about Alitu. Alitu is our podcast maker app. It's the product we sell, which supports all the free content like this that we put out in the world. It includes call recording, audio cleanup, audio editing, and podcast hosting, all in one simple place. Its primary goal is to make it as easy as possible for you to create your podcast, automating a lot of what you do and helping with the rest. It's just the simplest way to make your podcast and publish it to the world. For example, in Alitu here, you can record by yourself or with a group. It cleans up any audio you upload or record automatically, including noise reduction, leveling, normalization, all that stuff. You can edit super easily, just like this, and you can edit at double speed as well if you choose. And it includes text-based editing, so you can edit just as if you're using a Word document. Music fades are taken care of with just the click of a button, and you can add files to your timeline with just a click as well. And then finally, publish with all your detail in here with the inbuilt hosting, and you can use AI to generate titles and descriptions if you want to. If you want to check it out, go over to alitu.com, that's alitu.com, and you can get a 7-day trial to give it a shot. Being really specific about the style that you like is one of the best ways to get artwork that you actually want. You can get really specific about it in terms of an actual artistic style, such as pixel art, which I often like. So maybe it's a retro game style, pixel art style bit of artwork. Or maybe actually it's something around typography. You don't want an illustration, you actually just want great text, which actually works really nicely on podcast artwork in many cases. Another style I like and use a lot is minimalism. So modern minimalism, this kind of description, clean lines, minimal color palette, simple typography. So something like that can work really nicely for your show as well. Now, a great thing to do if you're struggling on this, there's loads of guides out there around styles, but actually ChatGPT can do it itself. So if we go to a new chat and I type in my description alone, and then say something like that. So give me some ideas on what style I might use for the artwork. Give me 10 different style ideas with a few ideas around the concept for the artwork too. Let's see what it comes up with. We've got clean tech minimalist, gives you style and concept. Retro broadcast, so vintage radio vibes, muted pastel colors. Blueprint workshop, playful cartoon, futuristic neon. So we could literally just copy and paste one of these and pop it into the style section. And in fact, I'm going to do that right now. So I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to go back and do that one right now. So I've got the description from before and I've got the style now added in. So let's see what we've come up with now. That's quite nice. I quite like that. That is showing the gear as well as the people, a bit of growth in there as well to represent the success around the podcast. And of course, you can edit this. I probably would have taken out charts, to be fair, perhaps give it a bit more of a personal touch, but that shows what you can come up with even with just standard created images. One quite common thing in podcast artwork is to include a photo of yourself as the host in that artwork. One way to do that is you can add that later on. So you can add that to the style requirements. You can say, create me some artwork, but leave space for a photo. So I've put in one style requirement here, modern minimalist, and then I'm going to I want to add a photo later. So please place the title in the top half and the tagline below that, but to the left. Lots of white space in the photo in the bottom half and right proportion of the artwork. So I'll show you what that comes up with next. And here's the result. Not exactly what I asked for, so a bit more coaching required. I did ask it to add more color, more style. I meant minimalist, but not white, and it's come up with this. So this is a good start. And it does leave a bit of space. Obviously, it's put in a little illustration here, but there's plenty of room for a photo. So we could have that as a background, place a photo of myself over the top. It might clash with this mic. So it might be that we would just ask it to remove that microphone as a next step. Let's look at another option when it comes to using photos, and that's to actually upload a photo of yourself. So you can actually add in this at the bottom. I've kept the style as whatever style you think's best. But in imagery, I'm also attaching a photo of myself. Please incorporate this photo into the artwork so that it forms the imagery of the artwork. So let's see what that came up with. There we go. So slightly terrifying. This shows why sometimes it's better to actually design an artwork with white space for you to place a photo in yourself, because actually it can alter the photo a little bit, and you can see that that is a little bit different. That's weird uncanny valley where it's a little bit different, so it's slightly strange. I asked it to not adjust the photo and it made it even stranger. I have seen better results from photos myself, so you can play around with it. Your mileage may vary, but in many cases you probably want to create artwork without a photo, leave some space, and then use a tool like Canva to actually place a photo over the top instead. Saying that, the other option that can work nicely with photos is actually to use it as an illustration inspiration. So I've said here, please replace the photo with a stylized cartoon, put it in the TV show style Archer. And this is what it came up with. And actually, I think that's much better. So it's not trying to be exactly me, but it's a version. Another great way to get some artwork you're happy with is to take some inspiration from existing artwork that works really nicely. So you can take a show that you like from Apple Podcasts and download that image and then upload that to ChatGPT. So for example, if you like rest is history, let's save that image to my computer and then I'll use that for some inspiration. Or maybe it's something like women in prison here. That's a really nice kind of rough style. So that could be a cool one to copy as well. Maybe it's mouse hour. It's something like that, which is much more childish, much more fun, much more cartoony. Or maybe it's something like cold-blooded mystery in Alaska, something quite atmospheric. So I'm going to grab those and I'll show you how that works in ChatGPT. What I've done here is upload the image into the chat, and then I've copied in our standard prompt, which we've been using along the way. And then for style, I've typed in, please take inspiration from the podcast artwork that I have uploaded. Don't copy it closely, instead use it as a guideline. Follow a similar style to create an artwork that suits my own podcast concept. So the idea is we don't want to copy these directly, we just want to use them for inspiration. And you can see what's come out of The Rest is History. So it's taken that texture, that text style, and actually created something quite nice from it. Quite simple, but good texture. Something you could use pretty much directly. But equally, as we've shown you earlier in the video, you could take that image and you could start to tweak it. You could add in different elements. You could change the text style, things like that, and really make it your own. To give you an idea of some other ones here as well, I took the cold-blooded one, and that one came out quite nicely, actually. It didn't have the picture in the background. You could actually start to tweak that and ask it to bring back in some of those images, but it's taken the colors, it's taken the text style, and created something nice as well. So I think that's a really nice way to use it, actually, is around typography. Often the typography is something that you're not going to copy directly, but you can take that style, and that style can actually be a really good basis for your own artwork. Moving down, we've got mouse hour. Similarly, it's the style here that really stands out. This one has been much more of a direct copy. You wouldn't want to put it out the way it is here, but it's a starting point. You could change the color scheme. You could change the icons. You could use that tool. Remember I showed you that, where you can come in here, you can use that paintbrush and say, these icons, let's change them to something else more relevant. Let's change them to illustrations of podcast microphones and things like that. That helps me to make it more like my show. Something like that can really take what is a starting point that's too much like an original and then make it much more your own. Finally, Women in Prison has taken the color scheme, the colors, the stars, and the text style and created something quite cool, actually. That's not too much like the original. You could ask it to tweak it even more to make it even more unique, more like yourselves, and then that would do the job. Something as a warning, the last one I put in was The Guardian's Football Weekly show, and it just directly copied the pictures. So you could go back and say, change that, but that one's way too similar, I would say. So you'd have to do a bit of tweaking with that one. So I hope that's given you an idea of how you can take artwork on shows that you like and actually start to create something of your own based on that artwork. Thanks for watching. I hope this gets your artwork up and running. Please remember, if you need any more help, we've got our Podcraft Academy. You can see it right here. It's our community space that is really based around action. We do have loads of courses, resources, templates, and everything, so you can learn everything you need. But more importantly, we've also got the tools to help you actually put it into action. So we do things like 4-minute feedback, where you can send in a clip of your podcast. I can give you feedback on any element of that show to improve it. We've got our title clinic, so you can get help with putting together better titles for your episodes and really get them discovered more effectively. We've got our accountability system called Your Content Boss, which really helps you get your stuff done and get consistent. So if you fancy it, join up. I'd love to see you in there, and we can help you get your podcast running like a dream. It's over at thepodcasthost.com/academy. That's thepodcasthost.com/academy. I'll hopefully see you there.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.